if you'll notice, I've got some pegs marked on here. I've got peg 2, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, peg 7, and it'll be the second peg from the end and the 7th peg from the end. I will tell you in a little bit why those are marked. Right now we are going to get started with our cast on, which we are using a chain cast on. So you will need a slip knot, you want to make sure your working yarn is the yarn that's slipping and not that tail. Now to do this chain cast on, get your tail out of the way. You're going to start on peg 2, which is your first peg marked. You pull the working yarn through the loop, then you tighten it up. You take the loop behind the next peg, do the same thing, loop behind, pull the working yarn through. You do this all the way down to your last marked peg. This last peg, which is the second from the last peg, is the peg that's marked. You put that loop on it, and then you just tighten the loop up. Now you're going to use the U-stitch, or you can do your true knit stitch, whichever stitch you are more comfortable with. And the yarn is coming from this peg, so we're going to skip the first peg, which is called slipping the stitch. It just helps give your edge a nicer look to it. So for the U-stitch, I'm wrapping the yarn around the front of the peg. So I'm going to grab the loop on the peg, wrap the yarn around the front, and knit off. And you want to do this pretty loose. Yes, and sometimes the yarn will want to split, and if it does that, you just take the stitch back off. You do this all the way to the other end. I just did this stitch. So the last stitch you do the exact same. Now for row 2, I will purl the entire row. And again, the yarn is coming from this one, so I'm going to skip that peg. And to purl, you lift the stitch up and pull the working yarn from the bottom. You're creating a loop. Take the old stitch off, put the new one on. I'll work a few with you. You pull the yarn up from the bottom, put the new loop on. You work down to second from your last peg. You purl that stitch. Now that last one, you're going to do your U-stitch, but it'll be going in the opposite direction. That's row 2. For row 3, we are adding in a new collar. Now this collar is going to be what will pop up as your snowflakes. One of the easiest ways to add the new collar that I do for something like this, I just fold the yarn over just a few inches because I just need to double this over just not very many stitches. So I've got that loop around there. Take that bottom over the top, tighten it up a bit, and then I just start with my U-stitches. I just hold both of these together. Oops, my loop came off. Hold both of these together and treat them as one strand. So I will show you a few. I like to go at least 3 to 4 stitches down. See, I held out enough to do 3 stitches, and that is locked in there so good that it's not going to work its way out. And you see I have a little bit of tail here. There's a little bit of a tail here. So when you're done with the project, you will just snip that down, or you can use a crochet hook and kind of weave it in. But row 3, you do your knit stitch, whether it's your true knit or your U-stitch. At the end of row 4, so see this one is thick, that had 2 strands together, so I will purl that, treat both those as one, and then I'll do my U-stitch. Now it is time to use the blue yarn. We will be skipping this first one just like we've been doing, and we will get that second one with a U-stitch. See, my yarn split. Get that second one with a U-stitch. There's the third. And you still work it just the same. When you get back on your purl row, this last one will be white. That is perfectly fine. Then you'll pick up the blue strand. When you get back down to this end, this last stitch will be white, and that's fine. You will pick up the white yarn, and then again you will skip the first peg like we are doing, and then you'll start working just the same way. Go ahead and work up your first 10 rows. Part 1 is done. We are now on row 1 of part 2. I've already worked row 1. It is just a knit row. Now, this isn't the finished version, but I'm going to show you how to read the row, and I'll work a row with you. Okay, so you have W, that means white. So row 1 was white, row 2 is white, but you knit 1, purl 4, knit 6, purl 1. You just follow the chart like that. And that's how every row works. You switch back to your blue, and every other row is a knit row. So let me get this to where it's in the shot, if you're able to see that. Okay, so row 1 was knit. Row 2, we purl 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We knit 6, which this one right here that is marked, this one, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, peg 6 from the beginning and from the end. For the whole body, you knit the entire time. But so we knit 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then see, it says purl 1, knit 5. So I purl 1, and then you knit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I do this all the way to the end of the row, and then for row 3 I go to blue. Row 4 it's still blue. Let me show you this a little bit. So we did row 1, and row 2 you just finish it out. Row 3 you switch to your blue and you knit. Row 4 will be a row where you're doing the chart. Actually, I will show you This is the, gotta angle my camera. Okay. This is a simplified version of the graph that is used. Circles are purl, empty spaces are knit stitches. Now, rowed up for the entire project, it looks like this, because every other row is knit. But at the end of it, this is the design, the Nordic star, that will be popping out that you can see. For the cast off, I'm going to use just the basic cast off, which what you do is you will E-wrap 2 pegs, you knit off, take your second peg, move it to the first, knit off, and then you fill in your gap. Now I just cut the second string, the white one, a few inches long, just long enough so I can weave it in so it doesn't come out. Let me zoom in and I'll show you this a couple more times. Your first step is you will E-wrap 2 pegs and you knit off. Second step you take stitch number 2, put it on that first one and knit off. And third, fill in the empty spot. I do it one more time. E-wrap 2. Step 2, move. Step 3, fill in. Do this all the way down to your last peg. I have 2 pegs left, so you still do E-wrap 2, you knit off, that second peg to the first, knit off. Now I take and cut the working yarn just a few inches, enough to pull through and weave in. I pull it up through the loop, take it off the loom, and there you go.